Hey everyone, today I want to give my thoughts on remote learning. So I went back to university for one course this semester in computer science. And I want to point out a few things about me. So I am not a full-time student. In fact, I'm also not a seeking student. So this is kind of just like I am taking a course for something to do and to further my own learning. Alright, this is kind of my motivation. So the thing is, like, why? So pandemic, you are at home all the time and limited social interaction, and just kind of bored. So now the thing is, like, you can take courses on like LinkedIn Learning and Coursera, or just like watch YouTube videos, but I find that if you take a course which you pay for, you are more likely to work hard. It's maybe it's a psychological thing. However, I guess this pay for thing is kind of like pay for, because actually for my course, like, my employer will like reimburse most course cost. So anyway. But I guess another thing about taking a course is, like, it shows up on a transcript, which I guess a transcript is like the employer will never see it, but like you have this dreaded transcript. And then if you like don't try in the course, you'll just get like an F on transcript, and you know that will be like horrible. So just the fear of a bad grade seems to be a motivation, even though the grade themselves seem not to matter much. But anyway, so I guess the first things about remote university is it's so like Zoom lectures, which I actually kind of like the Zoom lectures thing. Now they actually record one advantage is they record the lectures and then they put them up on YouTube, which means that if you miss the lecture time, you can actually just like watch it online, which to be honest, I didn't really do that much, but like I like having the option, so that's definitely a cool thing. But yeah, it actually does make sense for a computer science course, because I had an old computer science professor who would like draw out, like, write code on an overhead projector, and that was just horrible. So the idea is that you can like share your screen and then show code, which is like pretty cool, and show other things. So although now that I realize this, you can actually do that in a lecture too. So what am I talking about? Anyway. But it's kind of like a format that I'm used to. Like, I'm just used to watching YouTube videos with like people who are streaming and explaining things, and so it's kind of like a familiar format. So actually this Zoom lecture thing, like, I do not mind it, although I could understand. So this is not the aspect. This is not a negative aspect. The negative aspect is like the studying with others aspect, or like rather socializing with others aspect. Because like when you're in the class, you can like after class just like, hey guys, you want to go to the library, or you want to go to like some like some food, go get food and talk about stuff, and you have this like social interaction. So that's definitely something that you can't get online. I mean, now that the course instructor did have like a the course instructor did have an online forum for class discussion, but I found people didn't use this very much, or if they did, it was always just like, hey, I'm stuck, help me. And so the online forum, I kind of like didn't like it too much. We also did have like a Discord, and you don't want, no one's gonna post like random thoughts to this online forum because they know that everyone can read it and they're just gonna get like judged. So, but we had a Discord channel that kind of wasn't used by the whole class, but like some unofficial Discord channel, and that was pretty good. So like sometimes people will like just talk about random stuff, and I guess, but I guess one thing that ended up happening is like I established myself as a decent student in this course pretty quick. So basically, like good students can get harassed with questions, which I guess wasn't necessarily a bad thing though, because like, you know, I kind of like answering questions or explaining things, but it can be bad when. So a good example is like someone's like, hey, let's talk about graphs. And I'm like, oh yeah, I love graphs, let's talk about some graphs. But then a bad example is like, fix this error for me in 400 lines of Java code, which is like really bad Java code, and yeah, that's not fun. And then they don't know how to use the debugger, so, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, so this is kind of the social interaction, and often I would just like call people, and yeah. Anyway, this is one thing. Another thing is, so I guess one of the perks of being a student, although, okay, one of the perks of being a student is you can enter all of like the hackathons and like / other student stuff. So that's pretty cool. So I entered in some hackathon in March and ended up getting like some prize. And so I think that hackathon was pretty fun. Actually, since I never studied CS in undergrad, this was my first hackathon, although I had done what they call in stats like case competitions, like data science competitions, but I hadn't done this sort of thing before. So, you know what? I guess I can perhaps show what we did. One sec here. Oh gosh, maybe my site will not load. All right, that's fine. I can just pull it up. So yeah, it's probably not up right now. That's okay. So we created some. Here it is. Okay, so here it is. So basically, we created some site which showed the winners and losers of the pandemic. By winners and losers, I mean which companies benefited the most and which individuals benefited the most from the pandemic. So this is the so basically we used some API like it was called FinHub, and you know, this API kind of for the free tier, they don't provide all of the functionality that I would like, but anyway, they did provide stock prices. Like I think this was probably like the closing price of the stock for each day, and then we graphed this. I don't know. This is probably matplotlib or something with Python, and then we kind of display all of these graphs on a site, and then I provide some way to like search for different companies and download data probably. So I wrote it with Flask, and then I deployed this, and so you only get like 8 hours to do the whole thing. So, and to get the data, we were supposed to use some particular. There's like a challenge associated with it, so we had to use some certain Python package, which was being promoted in this hackathon. But anyway, that was a pretty fun little thing. Some people had done pretty interesting. Like some other ideas of what people did is they would have this like basically a text version of YouTube without the thumbnails. So you can just like search YouTube from like the command line or from this web interface. That was kind of interesting. I think the theme was just like use data in a good way, so not too much there. So that was one thing, and another thing is okay. So that was cool. So some other things is like I kind of challenge myself outside of the course. So what do I mean by this? Like creating projects related to the course, side projects. So one thing I did is I created. Now is this thing still up? So I created this blog. Is it up? It is up with Pelican. Pelican is some. How do I even describe this thing? It's kind of like Jekyll, which is like a Ruby thing, but for Python. It allows you to. Let me Google this. It's a static site generator, right? So you kind of write your content in Markdown like this. No, that's the docs. Let me try to find. So I would write some article like this. You know, this is all Markdown, and then it will generate the HTML for this, and then you know it generates some HTML site, and then this is the HTML site that you're seeing. So this was kind of a fun little thing I did. What else did I do? So I created this. I tried to get a really polished project. So our first assignment was related to Rush Hour, which is some game with some cars. Oh, there it is. All right. So you see this game with these cars. There it is. And then you have to like move, I guess, the red car out here by shuffling the other cars around. So it's kind of cool. And then I created this. Can I view it? Oh, I can. Amazing. So I created this level editor, and you notice this is running in the browser. And one interesting thing here is that this level editor is created in C++. So how is it running in the browser with JavaScript? Well, there's something called WebAssembly. So you know, and I kind of knew about WebAssembly, but I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure this out. So there's like this mscripting thing, and then you can compile it down to WebAssembly, and yeah, I went pretty deep into this. So you can see I can move the cars around, and how do I even solve this one? I probably don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I can show this. There we go. And you notice how the board on this left is a representation of the board, and now I move the X all the way to the end, and congrats, you solved the puzzle. So I created this thing. Yeah, I actually wrote a bunch of. I had originally written this whole. Okay, so the assignment was in Java, and then I was like, well, I'm pretty good with Python and PyQt, so I wrote it all in PyQt, and then I realized, oh, well, if you write it in PyQt, you can't really like do it in WebAssembly. So then I rewrote my PyQt thing in C++, and then all you have to do is compile it down to WebAssembly. So that's basically what I did, and you can edit this. Maybe I can make this one GG. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Oh, I even have different levels. So yeah, this is kind of as far as I got with this. And what else did I do here? I think that was the main thing. But there was also now after I had done this, I also created a solver, which ended up being the project for the course. Funny enough. So, but the solver is pretty cool. So if I go back to here, it's like you want to figure out what moves do you have to make to solve this puzzle. So like you can move C up and then D right and then E up. And actually, it's not. At first glance, it's not that easy to figure out how to solve this, but you can actually represent this problem as a graph, and from this position, view all of the positions of the board like one move away, and then from that position, view all of the moves one way away. And you can just do a breadth first search, trying to get the X car all the way to the right as your endpoint, and you can solve it this way. And I did that, and then it was kind of slow, so I ended up. Well, then I thought maybe Python just is slow, so I tried writing in C++ and it was still slow. So ended up doing a bunch of optimizations, and I got it pretty fast. I got it down to like about 0.02 seconds per puzzle, which was pretty good. So yeah, and then after you run this, you'll end up with something like this, some like, oh, move E left 1 and so on. So, you know, that was a fun little puzzle. Oh, I should also mention for this other rush hour thing that another thing I did is I had used this GitHub Actions before, but I wanted to I was specifically interested in like the Google, what's it called, G-test. So I wanted to, whenever I'd done a lot of unit testing with Python, like like unit test and whatever. And but for C++, I had used the what's the one called, Catch 12 or Catch C++ test. Catch 2. This thing is pretty good. This is kind of my preferred, but the G test I hadn't used it too much, so I looked into that, and I think I ended up creating an action to run the G tests when I merge. Let me see. Running tests. So how did I end up doing this? Let me try to look. Yeah, so I set up this whole G-test thing, and then what happens is when you merge, it will try to build the app. And for the build app, I think can I edit it? Right. So when you build it, it's like a Qt application. So you would need to when it runs these actions, you need to like install G++ and you need to install Qt and all these dependencies, and it's pretty complicated and also pretty slow. So running this action would be kind of slow. So I figured out you can if I create a Docker build image, and then my task just like runs in the container of that Docker build image and does the make. That works well. So then all I did is I created a Docker build image and uploaded it to Docker Hub, and then that's how I do the build with the actions. And the test is going to be similar. It's going to use this image and then just do a make instead of this. It's going to be like a make test or something. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So this is one of the projects I did. So which ones have I discussed? I discussed the hackathon. I discussed this, like my blog, and I discussed the rush hour solver and rush hour. And another thing I did was let me find it here. So I created this little circle thing, so you can like add some numbers and it will draw them, like 1, 2, 3, or 6, 5, 1, 4, 8. See, it represents them as a circle. Actually, trying to get these arrows at the right to look like this. There's some logic for this with JavaScript, like lots of math, like like cosine and sine. Can I even view it? It's probably here. So yeah, I got my cosines, my sines, my radians all going on here. So that was kind of a fun thing. Yeah, because one of the assignments was asking to try to come up with a circle linked list visualizer. So anyway, that was one thing. And let me try to find what else I did. There was oh yeah, the RSA factoring. So I never finished this one, but the professor also mentioned this RSA factoring thing, which is pretty interesting if you're not familiar. Yeah, so they have this like RSA 100, which is a number which is created by taking the product of two large prime numbers, and then you have to like factor it, like figure out what the prime factors are. That is it takes, yeah, so trying to do this on your personal computer, RSA 100 is doable with a good implementation, but any of the other ones, you probably need like a pretty powerful computer or a pretty optimized algorithm. So I did attempt this. I got somewhat far, but did not finish. But that's kind of an interesting one. Was there anything else? I think those are the main things I did. There were other things like so for interviews and stuff, I wanted to create a pretty good repository with like all of the some reference algorithms. There's some pretty good ones out there. Data structures, GitHub. Python. There was, I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. But there was one I liked here. But so I kind of wanted to create my own. So, and Kim cost a lot of good Python packages on the way. But anyway, there was, yeah, and then I would create this sort of thing where you're like, oh, if you want to look up this algorithm, you just like click on it, and that was pretty cool. I'll probably add more algorithms here as I go. I just find, yeah, keeping everything like this in an organized way, that's good. Oh, another thing I did, I also learned Rust. I would challenge myself, and they would have these lecture slides, and then I would be like, all right, I want to learn how to implement the same thing in Rust. So I would actually like, where is it? Yeah, so here, for example, linked list. So I would try to implement linked lists in Rust, which, by the way, is pretty horrible in safe Rust. It's really hard. So anyway, I would end up with, this was probably inspired by the Too Many Linked Lists in Rust, which is a great resource, by the way. Anyway, so yeah, so I would implement all of the lecture slides in Rust. That kind of stopped after about like, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks. I just didn't have time, but that's kind of a fun thing to do. The course was all in Java, so yeah, learning a new language. All right. So yeah, this is a good one. Challenging yourself outside of the course. Was there anything else I wanted to mention about going back to school? As far as like how much time it took, I mean the lectures are like 3 hours a week, and then the assignments would take me about like maybe 5 hours per assignment, and then there were like 4 assignments and a project, and project was maybe like, I don't know, 15 hours, and so on. And then the exams, I don't know, maybe 100, maybe I'm just off, maybe it's not 100 hours, but yeah, anyway, so these are kind of my thoughts on remote university, and so I don't know, maybe I'll take another course in the summer, we'll see. All right, bye then.